Welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa Allistway, and on this channel, you will find a variety of inspirational and informational videos. So if that sounds good to you and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. My guest today is psychotherapist Martin Miller. Martin Miller is the son of the world-famous psychologist Alice Miller. Martin has written a biography of his mother's life, The True Drama of the Gifted Child, The Phantom Alice Miller, The Real Person. English is not Martin's first language, therefore I have prepared my questions in advance and sent them to Martin in preparation for our chat. Welcome, Martin. Are you ready to get started?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to your show. I'm very happy to be here, and yes, I'm ready.
Fantastic. I'm happy to have you. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Yes.
Okay, so number one is, again, thank you for sharing your story and giving me the opportunity to ask these questions. For the listeners who may not be familiar with your mother and her work, what was your mother, Alice Miller, mainly known for?
My mother was born in Poland, survived the Holocaust, and later studied philosophy and psychology in Switzerland. She worked as a psychoanalyst for 25 years and then switched to writing books. In her books and writing, she consistently and as a matter of principle took the side of the child. She emphasized how common child rearing tends to destroy or impede a child's originality and individuality, thereby hampering his development. In response, the child develops a false self in order to survive, but is never able to develop their full potential. This is the central theme of all her books. For this reason, her first book, The Drama of the Gifted Child, has a subheading, The Search for the True Self. My mother's books became very popular, which generated media interest and gave her many opportunities to explain her theory to the broader public.
Fantastic. What was your intent for writing a biography of your mother?
Every time I spoke to people who had read my mother's books, I got a very similar response. They would gush about my mother and tell me how much they envied me for having had such a wonderful mother, and what could only have been an equally wonderful childhood. Up to her death, I was reluctant to tell the truth, namely that the woman in the books was not the same person as the woman in reality. In her books, my mother intended and created an Alice Miller that never really existed. My main intention was to finally speak the truth. At the same time, it was equally important to me to illustrate that despite the fictional Alice Miller, the content of her books is nevertheless both legitimate and important.
Very good, very good. Okay, how did you apply your mother's theory to writing your book, this book?
I suspect that my mother felt guilty for the way she treated me as a child. Yet her theory and her books provided me with all the necessary tools to process my trauma. My book clearly shows how I applied her theory in practice. Unfortunately, My mother never applied her theory in practice. I regard myself as my mother's intellectual heir. In the course of my work as a trauma therapist, I have not only successfully applied her theory in practice, but have also analyzed and expanded it.
Very good. Your mother was a Holocaust survivor and rarely spoke about it with you. How did her war trauma get projected onto you, and how has it affected you as an adult?
Moment mal.
Question 4.
Question 4. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yes. My mother took on a false name and survived the war in the Aryan part of Warsaw in constant fear. She was blackmailed by an extortionist and survived by seducing him. After the war, she returned to Lodz to study and again found herself persecuted for being Jewish, this time by the Stalinists. She ran into the same extortionist again while at university, and he fell in love with her. Under these circumstances, and from my mother's point of view, the blackmailer turned into her savior. They both received a scholarship from the University of Basel and were able to leave Poland for Switzerland. My mother told me that the extortionist had the same name as my father, Andreas Miller. I was born into that relationship. For years and years, my parents treated me as if I was a persecuted Jew in Warsaw. This is how their war trauma was transmitted to me, the next generation. The tragedy of my biography lies in the fact that my father had cooperated with the Nazis and now saw me as a Jew. He humiliated, despised, and beat me regularly. I never understood why my father treated me in this way, nor how my mother could be a quiet bystander in all of this without ever protecting and defending me. What made it worse was that in her books, she became the advocate of children vis-à-vis their abusive parents. For a long time and well into my adult life, all of this prevented me from being my true self.
Very good. All right. Question 5. In researching for this book, you uncovered many painful things about your mother and father. You wrote about your parents' dislike for each other and how you were the scapegoat for both of them. Can you speak about the imposed roles that were placed on you and how that made it difficult for you to be your true self?
The transmission of my parents' war traumas imposed a false self onto me, and the development of my true self was severely restricted. To live my true self a tiny little bit, I had to pretend to be somebody else, just like my mother, and to exist underground so as to not be visible.
Wow. Okay. Question 6. Do you think it was possible or impossible for Alice Miller to ever see her true self? Why or why not?
My mother never had the opportunity to undergo an effective and thorough trauma therapy. There were hardly any trauma therapists in the 1950s. As a result, she remained a captive of her false self. The only place where she could live her true self was in her books.
Mm.
This is also one of the main reasons why I decided to do my therapist training with a pioneer in trauma therapy some 40 years ago.
Wow. Okay. Question 7. You wrote about the abuse, abandonment, neglect, and betrayal you experienced from your parents. What advice would you give to someone who has experienced abuse at the hands of their own parents?
As a trauma therapist, I am able to help others uncover and process their repressed traumatic experience, not least because I have gone through that process myself and have come to terms with my own biography. If you had a traumatic childhood, it will be almost impossible to live a meaningful and self-determinate life without having undergone therapy.
Very good. Right. Question 8. You had an estranged relationship with your mother all the way up to her death. What did you need for your mother to say or do for you to have resolution and closure?
My mother never processed and came to terms with her trauma. As a result, it was impossible to have a loving relationship with her.
Yes.
That's the reality.
Yes. Okay. Question
9.
Question 9.
9.
What are the biggest takeaway lessons for this book that you want your readers to have?
It is critically important to both know and to process your biography based on my own experience. I cannot underline this point enough. As my mother described again and again in her books, it happens far too often that repressed childhood traumas translate into a lack of knowledge regarding our own biographies. This in turn means we never get the opportunity to live our true self.
Very good. Okay. Question 10. All right. Any final thoughts you would like to share regarding your book and story?
Yes, I have 3 final thoughts that I would like to share. First, the most important realization I had was that the truth always prevails.
Yes.
Second, you are only able to experience your true identity if you are fully aware of your story and your biography. Third, gaining that awareness opens the door to living a self-determined life.
Excellent. Excellent. I just want to share a final thought myself. We had talked before the recording, and you had said that this is so important because even I'm in America, and we have a lot of families from the Afghanistan war, the Iraq war, you have the Ukraine war going on. And this is a conversation that needs to be had and recognized because of the intergenerational trauma that is being passed down by all these wars that we're still experiencing in 2022.
Yes.
Most definitely. Well, fantastic. Thank you for coming on my channel. I really appreciate your strength and your courage in bringing your story to the forefront. And I hope that it inspires others to do the same. If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to comment down below if you have any feedback or any questions for Martin. He might jump on there and respond.
And I hope a lot of people will look the video, because it's
Yes.
so necessary. And I have also a channel, a video channel with about psychological content, and also I have on my webpage 2 lectures I gave in New York, but virtual conference about the film what I made.
Oh,
It's
yes.
what's Who's Afraid of Alice Miller? It's the
Yes.
film, and you can stream this film also in America. And they made a conference, and I gave lecture about my experience with transgeneration, intergeneration transmission of trauma. And also I post in my blog a speech, a lecture about my method, therapy method of trauma therapy, and it's also in English,
Oh, fantastic. I will
so
be
that
sure.
Americans can read my lectures also.
Fantastic.
And it's very also important to make sensible the people for these problems, because I think you have one part, and another part you are enemies in your society. And it's very difficult now also in America, but also in Europe. You have contradictions, and no, the people are not together, they are separated, and you have a little bit of social war. And I think it's also how I can say, the reasons are also these traumas. They are also social traumas. They are defended in the unconscious, and so they come up, and or some people will provocate that come up these traumas. And I think we have to look that you have peace in the society, and it's my little
Contribution.
contribution.
Yes.
Yes, and for that I was very, very satisfied and glad and happy that you invite me, and you have the patience, and you make me that. And I work very, very hard for this, but I make this also because it's very important.
Most definitely. And I know that you had a difficult childhood, and I'm happy that you found the silver lining and that you are teaching and educating others based on your experience, because there's a lot of people that are experiencing similar things that you've gone through. And I appreciate your vulnerability and honesty and sharing that with the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can also repeat, your questions are genius. Are
Oh, thank
very,
you.
very, very, they are so, they have motivated me to work with you.
Oh, thank you so
It
much.
was so, I was so happy with your questions. So I see that you have understood the book very well, and sometimes it's rare.
Uh,
And you are very sensible and sensitive, and that's rare.
Oh, thank you. Well, I will put a link to your book down in the description box so people can get your book. I highly recommend it. This video will make even more sense if you read his book. And
Yeah.
then I will also link your YouTube channel as well as your website so people can go check out the documentary that you mentioned, Who's Afraid of
And the
Alice
film,
Miller.
and they see also the film. It's also about my life, and I was also one time in USA. We make it, and we was also in Poland. And with me was also my grand cousin, the cousin of my mother, Irenka. She survived as child. They flew from Poland,
Mhm.
1939, the beginning of the Second War, to Ukraine.
Oh,
And
wow.
there was yet the Russian, and they took the whole Jewish family to Siberia in the Gulag. And when Hitler began the war, they could go out of the Gulag, and she survived with her family, and she told me it was terrible. But when you think his family was 60 persons, and she and her parents was the only that survived. The rest all was killed in Treblinka, and with the film crew, we was also in Treblinka, and this was terrible.
Mm.
10 kilometers before Treblinka, it was a very nice weather and very nice trees, and it was all green. It was springtime, but you had an atmosphere of grau, how you say. It
Greed?
was yes, it was terrible. You feel more than 1 million people they are died in this. You see only one stone, a great, and thousands of little stone, and is written inside the city from where the Jewish comes. They have killed suddenly, only killed.
Mm.
They have not like Auschwitz a camp where they worked or something else. They had only a uh,
Wow.
gas
Chamber?
room, yes, and only to kill. And it's terrible. It's so terrible. And when you are in Warsaw, in the ghetto, uh,
It's so unreal. I think about what your mother
it's
went through. Yeah.
it's so unbelievable, so
Yeah.
unbelievable when you touch when you come in touch with all this. And I read a lot of book also, people they survived Auschwitz and everything. And when you come in touch with this war, second war, and what happened there, and you see people, they are yet Nazis, and are right, and they don't they lie about Holocaust.
Mm.
I can't understand it. And I was also a victim of the second war, because my mother survived, and she changed the name, and I grow up as Catholic and now as Jewish. Nevertheless, I'm Jewish, and so I have difficulties with the Jewish people and with the Christian people. So
Mhm.
I was always alone, and that's make yes, it's heavy. It's so heavy.
Yes.
And you are always alone.
Mm.
And now in my age, I became 72 years in 2 weeks.
Happy birthday.
But I work yet. I rested young. But when you think, I began now to grow up, come out of the underground. With 68 years since I wrote the book, I began to come out of the underground. That's my life. With 63 years, I began to come out of the underground. And so I will thank you for the invitation, because you give me a chance to show me and to speak officially what I think.
Yes.
And that's very nice from you part. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you. And yes. I mean, you are proof that it's never too late. You're never too old. You can come out of the trauma, and you can make something good of it, taking something horrible and making something good of it. And that's what you're showing, and hopefully inspiring others to do with their own.
Yeah. And I'm working in my practice yet every day. And I have so lot of people, they come now. And first it was very, very hard, because I'm not in a club, I'm not Freudian or Jung or something else. I'm going my way.
Nothing wrong with that.
No. And now I'm successful.
Yes.
And I have success, and I have to say something. And that's very good. And thank you very much for your invitation. You made me a very, very great honor.
Oh, the honor was all mine. Thank you. I appreciate it. And for those that don't know, you're in Switzerland. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And so
I live in Switzerland on the countryside of Zurich.
Yes.
And with my woman, and we have now a dog. The other dog is dead in the summer, in the last summer. But one is rest and is Deutscher Schäfer.
Nice.
The German Shepherds.
Oh, nice. Okay. Those are really smart dogs.
In my web page, in the middle of the homepage you see my friend Kit, my dog.
Nice. Well, thank you, Martin. And I think you did a great job with English not being your first language, and just us conversating is showing me you should feel more confident in your English, because you're doing a really good job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But I think they understand what I wrote and what I said.
Yes, I hope so too. Okay, guys,
okay,
make sure
bye-bye.
Yes, and make sure to pick up his book, and don't forget to subscribe and share this video with somebody who might need to hear it, especially if
yes,
you're dealing with...
you can me send the link for the video.
I will definitely do that.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye. Have a good time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.